Good morning. Good morning and welcome, dear friends, to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. My name is Barbara Rosen, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. I use she, her pronouns, and am an older white woman with the white hair, glasses to read, and green eyes. And I'm wearing muted colors of black and greens and grays. I hail from the Seneca Nation of Upper New York, and we want to acknowledge that here at the church, we are on the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole peoples. We're a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you. This is a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. To learn more about our events, our church calendars on our website, uutarpon.org, or we'd be happy to talk with you during the coffee hour. For those present in the building, if you would like to fill out a card that is near the hymnals with your information, we will be able to stay in touch with you. There are also small cards by the hymnals. We do joys and sorrows at the end of the service, and if you would like to prefer to do one in writing, I can read it at the end, or you could come to the microphone. Our service today is led by our minister, Reverend Kristina Spaude. Music is provided by Bonnie Whitehurst and the choir. Our first piece of music, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, number 1008 in the teal hymnal.
If you'd like to stand, that's perfectly fine, or if you choose to sit, that is okay too.
I am the Reverend Kristina Spaude. I use she, her pronouns and am a white woman. I am tall with shoulder-length curly brown hair, parted on one side, and blue eyes. Our opening words this morning begin. Even though they are edible, someone decided that dandelions are weeds, stragglers to destroy, to uproot. But dandelions never got the memo, never thought to care. Busy instead with dropping roots, flinging seeds, unfurling, shoots. And persistent in that digging, in that taproot, to depths of 2 or 3 average adults end to end, the tiny yellow flower survives. You are no less resilient, reaching both down to the strength that holds you and up to the light, out with your beauty. And you know, having sunk your effort into the cool, damp earth, that while dandelions can be clipped and fought, uninvested in anyone's opinion, they throw their sparkling futures onto the wind, tomorrow tucked into seeds, and grow all the way back, strong and bowing at the very same time. That was Taraxacum by Julian Jamaica Soto. Come, let us worship together.
We light our chalice with these words from Gordon B. McKeenan. Deep calls unto deep. Joy calls unto joy. Light calls unto light. Let the kindling of this flame rekindle in us the inner light of love, of peace, of hope. And as one flame lights another, nor grows the less, we pledge ourselves to be bearers of the light wherever we are. And now we will read the covenant.
Please join with me in reading our covenant. We strive to look for and encourage the best in each other as we move toward justice, peace, and love for both ourselves and the world. And when we fall short, we will seek understanding, reconciliation, and a return to covenant.
And now Bonnie will lead us in hymn number 123, Spirit of Life, in the gray hymnal. Our story this morning is Wanda's Roses, written by Pat Brisson and illustrated by Marianne Coca-Leffler. One morning on the way to school, Wanda noticed a bush growing in the empty lot on the corner. It must have been growing for a while because it was already about 2 feet tall, and Wanda was surprised she hadn't noticed it before. But there it was, bare and thorny, and Wanda, who loved beautiful things, felt her heart beat faster. "A rose bush," she said to herself, "my very own rose bush." Now, the rose bush didn't really belong to Wanda, but since nobody seemed to own the lot or the heaps of junk that were piled there, she decided that she would care for this bush and make it her own. All during school, she thought about her rose bush. During art, she drew pictures of what it would look like in bloom. During library, she borrowed books on arranging flowers. During science, she asked so many questions about how to take care of it that finally her teacher said that she really must stop asking questions about roses and start thinking about electricity, which is what the lesson was about. After school, she rushed to the rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs some more sun, thought Wanda. So she put down her school bag and began dragging away some of the nearby trash to the curb. Mrs. Turner, who was on her way to the store, stopped to help her with a broken chair. Cleaning up the neighborhood, Wanda? Mrs. Turner asked. That's a very nice project for you. Oh, I'm not just cleaning. I'm helping my rose bush to get more sun so it will bloom. Your rose bush? Mrs. Turner asked. Where is your rose bush? Oh, over there, Wanda said, pointing proudly to the bare, thorny bush. Oh, Wanda, I'm not so sure that that's a rose bush, Mrs. Turner said gently. Sure it is, said Wanda. I've seen rose bushes in books, and this is what they look like before they bloom. You just wait. In a few weeks, this lot will be full of roses. Well, said Mrs. Turner, shaking her head. Good luck with that, Wanda. And as she walked away, Mrs. Turner thought to herself, if that's a rose bush, then I'm the Queen of England. The next day after school, Wanda hurried to her rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs more air. So she put down her school bag and began taking more of the trash to the curb. Once I get all this trash cleared out of here, nothing will block the air from getting to my rose bush. Mr. Claudel was on his way home from work and saw Wanda trying to drag an old door, so he stopped to help. Cleaning up the neighborhood? Are you, Wanda? He asked. Not just cleaning, Mr. Claudel. I'm getting rid of this trash so my rose bush will get more air. A rose bush? Here? He asked. And so Wanda showed him the rose bush. I don't know much about gardening, Wanda, Mr. Claudel said, frowning, but I don't think that's a rose bush. Sure it is, said Wanda, and in a few weeks this lot will be filled with the sweetest smelling roses you ever saw. She thanked Mr. Claudel for his help and went off to drag away some more trash. Mr. Claudel shook his head. If that's a rose bush, he said to himself, then I'm the King of France. Every day after school that week and the next, Wanda worked in the empty lot. Mrs. Giamoni, who lived in an apartment next door, gave Wanda trash bags for the old shoes, beer bottles, broken toys, and bits of glass that she was picking up. You've done a great job cleaning this lot up, Wanda, Mrs. Giamoni told her. Oh, I'm not just cleaning. I have to get rid of all of this trash so that my rose bush will get enough sun and fresh air to bloom. But where is your rose bush? Mrs. Giamoni asked, and so Wanda showed her. Mrs. Giamoni put her hand on Wanda's shoulder and spoke softly to her. Wanda, this is not a rose bush. Oh, but it is, said Wanda. In just a few weeks, this lot will be filled with the most beautiful roses you ever saw. That would be nice, said Mrs. Giamoni, but I don't want you to be disappointed if that bush doesn't bloom. Don't worry, Mrs. Giamoni, I won't be disappointed. Mrs. Giamoni sighed. That was not a rose bush and will never be one, she thought to herself. The next week, when the rose bush still wasn't blooming, Wanda talked to her school librarian. I need some books on getting my roses to bloom, she said to Miss Jones. Oh, do you have a rose bush, Wanda? Miss Jones asked. Yes, but it doesn't have any flowers yet, and I know that it has enough sun and fresh air. Does it have enough water? Water! Wanda said. "Of course, that will make it bloom." That afternoon, she hurried to the rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. She looked at the dry ground and smiled. "Don't worry, little bush," she said out loud. "I'll get you some water, and then you'll be able to grow flowers." Wanda went to the butcher shop across the street. "Mr. Sanchez, would you please give me some water for my rose bush?" "Rose bush? Is that what I see you taking care of and talking to every day over there?" "Are you sure that's a rose bush, Wanda?" Mr. Sanchez asked. "Oh, yes, I'm sure. But it can't bloom because it needs water." Mr. Sanchez gave her water in a plastic bucket. "I hope that really is a rose bush, Wanda," he said, looking at her doubtfully. "You'll see," Wanda told him. "In a few weeks, this whole lot will be full of roses." As Wanda carried the water to her rose bush, Mr. Sanchez muttered, "In a few weeks, that thorn bush will still be a thorn bush." Every day, Wanda ran to her rose bush after school, but every day it was still bare and thorny. She watered it and sang to it and checked its bare branches for roses. Mr. Claudel, on his way home from work, stopped to see if there were any roses yet. And Mrs. Turner, on her way to the butcher shop, stopped to see if there were any roses yet. Mrs. Giamoni, seeing Wanda in the lot, called down to her from her apartment to ask if there were any roses yet. When Wanda went to the library at school, Ms. Jones asked if there were any roses yet. And every day when Wanda went to the butcher shop for water, Mr. Sanchez asked if there were any roses yet. To each person, Wanda would answer the same thing: "Just you wait. Pretty soon, this whole lot will be filled with roses." And then one day in June, Wanda had an idea. Looking at the bare, thorny bush, she said, "If my rose bush won't give roses to me, I'll just have to give roses to my rose bush." And when she saw Mrs. Turner, Mr. Claudel, Mrs. Giamoni, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Sanchez, she gave each of them an invitation that said, "Please come for tea and muffins in Wanda's rose garden Saturday morning at 9. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Turner, "is she still expecting to get roses from that bush?" "Oh no," said Mr. Claudel, "and she's worked so hard too." "Oh my," said Mrs. Giamoni, "she'll be so disappointed." "Oh darn," said Mr. Sanchez, "there must be something I can do." "Oh good," said Ms. Jones, who had only heard about the bush from Wanda and hadn't seen it for herself, "and I'll bring the muffins." The night before the tea party, everyone was very busy, and the next morning at 9, everyone was surprised to see Wanda's rose bush covered with roses. Paper roses that Wanda had made herself and carefully tied to each bare, thorny branch. But more surprising yet, everyone who came to the party who had brought along a rose bush to plant near Wanda's, except Ms. Jones, who had brought delicious blueberry muffins. After they had eaten their muffins and drunk their tea, they all got busy planting rose bushes. Mr. Claudel and Mrs. Turner dug the holes. Mrs. Giamoni held the bushes in place while Wanda and Ms. Jones filled in around the roots with soil. And Mr. Sanchez brought water from his shop and watered them all thoroughly. When the work was finished, Mr. Claudel said, "Wanda, this is going to be a rose garden fit for a king." "Or a queen," said Mrs. Turner. Wanda and the others smiled. And later that summer, the whole lot was filled with the biggest, most beautiful, sweetest smelling roses that anyone had ever seen, just as Wanda had always said it would be. And now we will sing our children off to their programming with their mamas, Jami and Anna Heath. And as we do so, we will sing hymn number 413 in the gray hymnal, "Go Now in Peace." And I will light this candle to reflect the love and light of this community in their time together.
The purpose of our church is to encourage all who gather here to grow more generous in spirit and in action. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will most gratefully be received. The next piece of music, The Fire of Commitment, number 1028 in the teal hymnal.
Earth's a beacon bright and clear, guide
Each week before our moment of silence, I like to offer something for reflection, if you would like, during our moment of silence. And today, of course, is Father's Day. I also want to acknowledge that this last week, there was the 8th anniversary of the Pulse Nightmare Massacre, and this coming week is the celebration known as Juneteenth. So perhaps one of those will resonate for you during this moment. I invite you now to settle into yourselves and your seats. You might take a few breaths deep into your belly if that is comfortable for you, as we hold a moment of silence together. Our reading this morning is actually another story called The Mishmash Heart, part of the Love Connects Us curriculum of our Tapestry of Faith. Recently, at a multi-generational event at a Unitarian Universalist congregation, everyone was encouraged to create a heart. They were given some construction paper and some glue and some markers to design their heart. Emily worked diligently to create the most perfect, beautiful heart she could. It even had glitter in the shape of diamonds all around the outside. As she was helping to clean up, she noticed the heart of one woman who was around the same age as her grandmother, sitting at a nearby table. It was a mishmash mess of odd colors and had pieces that were ripped and torn, glued haphazardly upon it. Parts of it were wrinkled and crinkled, and there was even a little hole in it. Thinking that there was something wrong, Emily offered to help the woman fix her heart. But the woman merely smiled and explained that there was nothing wrong with her heart. It merely revealed all the things which had happened to her in her life. She said that there were happy times here. The beautiful colors and designs represented when she first met her husband, their wedding, and the birth of their 3 children. There were other beautiful parts too, which stood for watching her children take their first steps on their own, riding a bike for the first time, and graduating from college. But what about all the rips and tears and wrinkles? Emily asked. Why are they there? These were for the sad times in her life, the woman explained. The time her best friend was stricken with measles, the time someone lied or did something to hurt her feelings, and the hole that was left behind when her husband died. In fact, every time a person comes into my life that I care about, she explained, they take a piece of my heart with them. This was distressing to Emily, thinking that the woman of having given part of her heart away to all these others. But what happens when you give it all away? You'll be left with nothing. No, I won't, the woman responded with a smile, because you see, they give me a piece of theirs as well. Emily looked down at her beautiful, perfect heart with the glitter diamonds and the designs that she had worked so hard to make. Then she looked again at the woman's mishmashed heart with the jagged colors and the rips and wrinkles. Without hesitation, Emily ripped off a piece of her heart and handed it to the woman. Thank you, the woman said as she placed it with her mishmash heart and tore off a piece of hers to hand to Emily.
of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing in love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind and turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
Thank you very much.
There's a story in the Christian scriptures that I'm sure many of you have heard, the parable of the sower in Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 through 9. It goes, "That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the lake. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got onto a boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, 'Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen. I get the being worn out and wanting to take a break and also still needing to continue to do the work, especially in June when there's so much extra going on with things as we work to give the congregation an as smooth as possible transition with my leaving and a new minister hopefully coming, plus ministry days, plus General Assembly, not to mention what is going on in my own life. So I feel you, Jesus. Listen, ministry is a whole lot, no matter what size the position, and it's more when it's continuing in an endemic, the acute part of the pandemic having killed millions of people. Volunteerism is probably at an all-time low. Attendance and membership are also lower than they've been in decades for everybody, and the world is on fire, both literally and figuratively. Sometimes we all just want a break. Although I have not really been one for the scriptures most of my life, I learned the wisdom of this story early in my formation as a mentor shared that ministry is just like this. Our purpose is to sow seeds. And because we don't know where they'll land or if they'll get what they need or if they'll just get eaten by birds, our responsibility as religious professionals is to sow, or more properly, to spread as many seeds as we possibly can. We can't be sure what will happen until it happens, and the work isn't done then, it's just beginning. Then we have to tend to it to make sure, to try to make sure that it grows healthy and strong, making sure that it has proper air, sun, room, water, and care. And not too much and not too little. We may also talk and or sing just to add some extra assurance of its hoped for thriving. We need to be aware of what that plant needs to do its best. And sometimes what we sow brings much new life and bounty. Sometimes it's just a little. Sometimes we feed the birds. All of it is good. As I've been preparing for this sermon, my mind wandered all over things to do with plants and growing, and back to a blog post a colleague, Liz James, had shared years ago. Many of you who are on Facebook likely know Liz as the creator of the UU Hysterical Society group. Yes, that Liz. Liz is also a writer, and she had written a piece about the end of her marriage. How when marriages end, the only way we have to talk about them is to say that they failed. Liz observed that good marriages can end before death ends them, and that doesn't make them less good. So listen. Things coming to an end, a natural, organic end, is not a failure or meant to be a loss. Sometimes it is just an evolution, and recognizing that is valuable. Liz recounted once having gone to an old growth forest where the trees live for hundreds of years. And then she realized as she looked down toward the ground that those trees' lives don't end. They just become the source of new life as they are transformed into nurse logs. Moss, flowers, fungi, and even new trees make their lives from these fallen trees, life that wouldn't have been supported in the absence of these logs. That is, only what has ended could give new life to something else. The forest becomes layers of life and an ecosystem that self-regulates. Nothing is ever wasted. So the other connection that I made with the scripture before is that ministry isn't just about throwing seeds everywhere, waiting to see what takes hold. Obviously, we don't enter into a barren land or an abandoned lot and simply hope that we can make something beautiful there with some new seeds. Sometimes there's already a bush that we are sure is a rose bush waiting to be properly tended, or maybe other plant life that could use some care. So we tend to what we have. Sometimes things are growing too wild or seem to be dying out, no longer able to sustain life in the same way. Sometimes another tree has fallen and there's more sunlight coming through this part and all sorts of things are just springing up. Sometimes the seeds we spread aren't what takes root and instead we are planting whole bushes in Wanda's lot. Sometimes it's a whole ecosystem that needs careful tending as we enter it to make sure that it continues to thrive, perhaps in spite of our presence. Sometimes we learn to respect that the thorn bush is indeed a thorn bush, and that doesn't mean we can't still make it beautiful. And mostly, what we realize is that it's the coming together that made any of it anything worth loving in the first place. That when everyone brings love and life, we can create something new and meaningful. Listen, ministry is many things, but easy is not one of them, even in the best of times. In some ways, we might say that ministry is learning the always moving balance of holding on and letting go, and sometimes even needing to do both at the same time. Each has its purpose and time. I don't know if you've seen the Carvana commercial with Kristen Bell and her husband Dax Shepard. He asks her about whether they should think about selling their van, and she says she's already been looking into it for 7 months. It's on Carvana. He asks about putting the sale through, and she replies, hold. Again and again he asks, now? And she replies, hold, hold. And then all of a sudden she says, now! And before he can respond, she's sold it. Some of you have undoubtedly heard me say that it's not time for something yet, that the congregation isn't ready yet. Over and over, I've been told the congregation should be doing X or Y, always large endeavors that needed capacity beyond what congregants had demonstrated a willingness to offer. I understand the impulses, the hopes that people were trying to express, but as the minister, I am always balancing that hold with now. A friend used to say to me all the time, God only has 3 answers to any question: yes, no, and not yet. It's important to recognize that no and not yet are not the same, and neither of them is wrong. They each have a place and a purpose, just as the ever important yes. We think that yes is better than no, but again, each has their place and their purpose. A holy no is just as important and meaningful as a holy yes. A holding on is just as important and meaningful as a letting go. We do best when we hold on to each other and we let go of what is holding us back from growing in ways that let us flourish and not merely survive or barely fend off death. There's a lot of holding in ministry. Holding hands, holding hearts, and, whether you believe me or not, holding tongues. There's also a lot of letting go. Letting go of expectations, letting go of feelings and emotions, letting go of hopes and visions and the need to take credit or have control, and especially letting go of outcomes. We need to hold on to each other and let go of those expectations. We need to learn that the best magic happens when we gather and talk and listen to one another. I know this ministry has been a challenging one. I know this because it has been challenging for me. But I believe that overall you are far better for it, that our time together has made a difference for this congregation, and I know it has for many of you individually. During our time together, apart from surviving the pandemic, which is a huge feat and one not to be taken for granted, you have grown in some really healthy ways, and I am proud of you. Again and again, we faced distrust and conflict, and again, you managed to weather it without severing. It's taken some time, but you are struggling through the difficult conversations that have needed to happen. It's been so hard. And at times, it has hurt. But there is nothing more important for a congregation to do than to have the hard and honest conversations. It has been messy and imperfect, or we might say human, but you have made it through together. And that is not a small feat either. This congregation has torn itself in half before, and I wasn't sure every fall if you wouldn't have that happen again. But I think you've finally gotten to a place where you're able to do the hard work of keeping in covenant and will be able to continue to do so. And I am so proud of you for that. Our hope is only as great as we're willing to risk for it. Our future is only as bright as we're willing to risk and work for it. But anything is possible when we journey on that road called hope together. My leaving has been an invitation to all of you. This congregation has relied heavily on the minister to carry it. Your transitioning to a smaller part-time role for your minister means that someone else or else's need to pick up the things that the minister has done, or they won't be done. We have worked in my time with you to build capacity for sharing work and sharing ministry. Now you have the opportunity to grow into some of the needs and can do this in a healthy way. And you will do so with your own sowing of seeds and taking root in nurse logs. I know this can make you a better and stronger church and has the potential to help you grow in ways that have not yet seemed possible. Dr. Ira Bayak, whose work I have followed for a long time, is a palliative care and hospice advocate and doctor. He has written about the importance and benefits of these two aspects of end-of-life caring and related topics. He has helped many people learn how to leave this life and help others leave well because his work is so accessible. Dr. Bayak says that there are 4 things that we need to say at the end, whatever shape that end takes, to provide for a good ending. They are, please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, and I love you. I came to this congregation 7 months after the previous minister had left and 4.5 months after the coronavirus pandemic began. You had already worked out a lot of things. Everything changed before I came and after. None of us knew at the time really how long it would take for the pandemic to end or how what had happened would impact not just who you were, but also what you as a congregation needed. We were all thrown into the deep end and figuring all of it out together as best we could. And I'm sure it was not the easiest or best start. I know some expectations were unmet and I have caused hurt. I know I have fallen short at times. For the ways I have hurt you or let you down, please forgive me. This has not been an easy ministry. I have been hurt by some of you, and you have hurt each other as badly at times. I have often been rather alone in trying to hold individuals accountable and in asking you to hold each other accountable. 3 autumns in a row, I wasn't sure that the congregation wouldn't have, and the stress of that has taken a toll. For the ways you have hurt me and let me down, I forgive you. This is how we grow. We fail and we begin again. This is what it makes to keep and practice covenant. We try and we try to do better, and we carry on with the work of ministering and making a congregation as best we can. It has been a joy to witness your own growth over these years, and especially to participate in the growth this congregation has experienced. I know the numbers are about the same, but you have grown in depth and faith and in relationship with one another. I have been grateful to get to know many of you, even a little bit. Thank you for experimenting with me, trusting me to lead you through the hardest time of at least a generation, and for the ways that we have learned things together. And thank you so much for the opportunity to work with Bonnie, Tammy and Gail, and Jami and Anahis. I have been spoiled with them. Thank you. A number of you have become so dear to me, and I will miss you so much. So I want to be sure to say, I love you. You have taken pieces of my heart as you have given me pieces of yours. There is still work to be done, things as yet unformed, as there will always be. When I was interviewing with congregations this spring, I was asked what regrets I had, what I wish had been done before my leaving. And I was grateful to say honestly that I have done all that I could do, all that I felt called to do here. The ground below you is firmer now, both literally and figuratively. I am proud of where you are and excited for what might yet be coming. You have seeds in your own pockets and are on the lookout for nurse logs. May all the right things take root at the right time. May you tend each life faithfully as it grows. And may the harvests be meaningful and fulfilling. If you would please rise in body or in spirit and lift your voice in song with me for our closing hymn, number 368 in the gray hymnal, Now Let Us Sing.
And note that there are 3 other verses below that words change. Sing to the hope within, sing to the love within, sing to the power of the joy within. And there are 2 parts to this hymn. I'll play through one time and then we'll begin.
Lift up your voice.
before we get to the part that you're looking forward to, I'm sure, I made paper roses. I was like, oh, this will be a fun little project. It was a project. They are finely crafted of construction paper and glue. But if you would like one or more, you are welcome to take some. As I was getting done with the first set of flowers, and I was like, oh, this is great, I feel done, I was like, I could make pride flowers. So of course, then I had to make a whole bunch of pride flowers as well. So there's a mix. The other thing is that I wanted to offer something else. And when I saw these tags as I'm packing up and getting ready to move, I thought, I know what I'm going to do with those. So the story behind having these tags in the first place, and they are gift tags that have little hearts punched into them. When I was ordained, I don't know if anybody remembers the story of the church in Transylvania that the people built themselves, and they had the lanterns that they carried out into the world and brought them back in with them, and so they carried the light with them all places. So that was the story that we used that I chose to use at my ordination. And I had collected a whole bunch of lanterns. There must have been at least 24 of them. Different sizes, different colors, different shapes. And every lantern had at least one, depending on its size, sometimes multiples, one of these tags on it. And on each of the tags was named their friend or family member, a member of my home congregation, or a member of my internship congregation during my time of presence with them, who had died, who could not be there with me that day, but who had still carried me into my ministry as a way of recognition. We put them on the lanterns as we continued to carry them out into the world and back into our homes. And so with these tags, I do have some more in case we run out. They're very fine. They're cardboard and twine. But on them is written, thank you for making the road called hope with me. And so, in the gift of faith, Jean Harrison Newyar has written, in the lore of ancient China, there's a story of a philosopher who was asked, where is the road called hope? He replied, it does not exist, but as people move upon it, it comes into being. I invite you to continue moving forward on this path, this journey, this road called hope with me, even if now we must separate.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circles round to tend these lives. We shall be known
We hope that you found meaning in today's service. We close with these words from Amanda Alice Ulahan. Together, we have enjoyed the warmth and beauty of stories of this flame and of this special community. As our child's flame is extinguished this morning, we can still remember that its glow is carried within us. We can use our inner lights and this flame to kindle new sparks throughout our lives and in the world. May the spirit of peace and togetherness bless your lives.